Hi there, friends. Welcome. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, kicking off a new week of our program, and we're so glad that you are with us. I'm Jerry Usher, along with Debbie Georgiani. And Debbie, today, what we are going to be talking about is talking.
Communication.
Communication, yeah. How was your weekend, first of all?
It was fabulous. Divine Mercy Sunday.
Yeah.
How do you not love Divine Mercy Sunday? I just loved it, and I loved watching all the EWTN programs that were on, reflecting that, and it was just amazing, just incredible. The homily this weekend was, of course, all about Saint Faustina, and it just gives you such hope, such confidence, and I love it, Jerry. So this was a great weekend for me. How about you? I think didn't you have company?
Yeah. I got my youngest brother and his wife here, and their 90-pound black lab, and which is an interesting juxtaposition next to my 8-pound mini pincher, Duke. But they renewed their acquaintance from the last time Lucy was here. So
that's awesome.
They're having a great
awesome.
time. Yeah.
So you're having a good time. Is it hot there in California?
It's been hot. Yeah, it's been in the 90s. Yeah.
Us too. I think we hit 97 yesterday. So everybody's pulling out the shorts and flip-flops and all that. So here we go. Summer's here. Yeah.
Well, what do we want people to call in and talk about today?
Well, today we're talking about the art of, or maybe we should say the lost art of communication. We know that a lack of communication or a breakdown of communication is the reason behind so many relationships break up, organizations kind of just disband, or even companies go under because of this really difficult time of communicating effectively. And so we want to talk about that today because we want to look at it from the lens of a Catholic Christian, of what that means for us when we communicate. Should we over communicate? Should we just assume that somebody else who maybe shares similar beliefs as us, that we just should assume that they should know what we're thinking? Or do we really take the time to properly listen and then very effectively communicate? That's what we're talking about today on Take Two.
All right, if you'd like to join us, the number is 1-833-288-EWTN, 833-288-3986. And Debbie, you mentioned something, and I'd love to hear from anybody else who shares this in common with me. I would say I'm an over-communicator. I don't know if you feel that way about me, Debbie, but I love precision in communication. I repeat myself a lot. If, say, I've got an email thread going on with somebody, I'll reply, and then I'll say, okay, and thanks for getting back to me about this, and, I'm going to be ready for the call at, on this day, at this,
Right.
Just sort of making sure that there are no gaps in communication. Who else is like that? I'd love to hear somebody else say that I'm not the only one who does that.
I think you're a very good over-communicator in a good, balanced way. You confirm things. You want to make sure. I like how you said precision in communication. I'm going to use that if I may borrow that, because Marty always says to me, Debbie, you don't have to tell me 1,000,000 times. I'm going to say it's just my precision in communication. So if you don't mind, Jerry, I need to borrow that. But I think that's excellent. And I think that's very good and healthy, because then there's no misunderstanding. So where are you on this? To our wonderful Take Two family. How about you? Do you feel you communicate well? Do you feel that maybe even in your relationships, there's a breakdown of communication? Let's talk about it. Let's have that frank discussion that we probably cannot have at our workplaces, but we can have it here on Take Two. Here's the number, 833-288-3986.
Yeah, and Debbie, as you said at the start of the show, communication is vital in so many different spheres of our life, but especially in our closest relationships, and that, of course, would be marriage for husbands and wives. And so, guys and gals, give us a call and talk about if you've managed to develop really solid, respectful communication, procedures in your marriage. If one of you say, maybe takes offense at something that the other one does, are you able to sit down and just say, hey, let's talk about this, rather than kind of letting it, because Debbie, so many people just kind of keep it inside, keep it bottled up and think, I can't say anything because that'll just escalate. Whereas I think a lot of couples, they have policy. They agree up front that they're going to just bring things out into the open and air these things, and I think that diffuses so many potential problems within marriages.
It's healthy. It really is. And here's the other thing too, Jerry. Let's also bring this into the discussion. We know that women can or should or have the need to use many more words than men a day. So let's just say, a guy goes off to work and he's there 8 to 10 hours a day and he's used up all his words. And then he comes home and you've maybe gone to work as well, inside the home or outside the home. And you haven't used up nearly as many words. And you're just talking. Are they really listening? Because that's also part of communication as well. Really good listening. And I think, Jerry, in this world that we live in, I always call it this crazy world we live in, that it's moving so fast that we don't necessarily stop and really listen to one another. Do you think so? Do you think we really stop and listen?
I think listening is definitely, I don't want to say a lost art completely, but the thing is, Debbie, as you and I, our experience has come to show us, one thing that people really are longing for in the world today, and perhaps in every age, is to be heard, just to be listened to, and to be able to share who they are and what's going on in their life. And if we don't afford them that opportunity by listening to them, I think you're right. I think, it can just, it can lead to bad communication, obviously, but. So 833-288-EWTN, how are you at communicating in your marriage, on the job, with your kids? Do you have good ways of healthy ways of communicating with your kids that are not? I was just going to say that are not always text based. In fact, as a family, I want to hear from somebody as a family. Maybe you have time where you say, okay, it's maybe Sunday afternoon. Gadgets going in a little basket over here. We're going to turn them off, and we're all just going to do something. We're going to get together. We're going to talk. We're going to laugh. We're going to share, what went on during the week, what we're looking forward to in the upcoming week. Family communication. Share with us how you do that. If you're able to do that, maybe you feel like life has just has gotten to the point where you can't do that anymore. Debbie, I think a lot of families. Parents, God bless them. I think sometimes they may just go, what can I do? All of my kids are running in, 1,000 different directions. And, it's almost like, once the horses are out of the barn, trying to corral them and get them back in there.
Right. Well, we're going to ask the Take Two family to communicate with us today by giving us a call and sharing your wisdom. Remember, this is your show, Take Two, with Jerry and Debbie, and you. You drive the show. This is all about your take on things, your experience. We learn from you. This is a peer ministry. So don't let us down. Dial in 833-288-3986. We're so glad you joined us today on this beautiful Monday. We're just happy you have this brief hour to spend with us. Hopefully you'll learn something, get a little change, a little bit closer to God, but we're talking about communication today, so call in quickly. We'll be right
back. Christ is the answer, with Father John Riccardo.
In the midst of our culture today, in this age of relativism, which wants to grant Jesus some significance, but not so much, so we'll give him wise man, great leader, inspiring preacher, great teacher, prophet. You don't get that option when you claim to be God. What reasons do we have to believe that he is who he said he is? And it's important, again, to employ the use of our reason and to understand that faith is not blind. My faith, and please God, the faith of everyone here, is not blind. It rests on something. It rests on a number of things, not least of which is my own experience of God, but it also has something substantial which can be claimed through history. We're not talking about a galaxy long, long ago, far, far away when we talk about Jesus. We're talking about a precise moment in history which has been testified to by countless testimonies, and you and I have access to them.
EWTN's National Catholic Register is America's most trusted Catholic news source. Try 6 free issues with our compliments. If you like it, you can subscribe later at a 35% savings off the newsstand price. Visit ncregister.com today.
Father Mitch Pacwa.
Sin does not unite people, doesn't bring them together. Sin causes division and divides people up.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
We are delighted to have you with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And as we mentioned briefly at the start of the show, glorious, of course, Divine Mercy Sunday, and we pray God's rich mercy and abundant blessings in your life and on your loved ones as well. What a great, great feast that is, and of course, championed so beautifully by Saint Pope John Paul II. So, take advantage of that every day. Ask God for His. The Bible says His mercies are new every morning. So, make sure that you ask for and confidently expect God's mercy in your life and on the lives of those you love. And we are talking about communicating today, communication, and asking you just how good you are at communicating. Or maybe you're a little bit, you need to kind of polish up those communication skills a little bit. Have you experienced something that Debbie mentioned before? Have you seen a company, a business, even a parish, maybe struggle a little bit and flounder because there was just simply not good communication? 833-288-3986 is the number to call.
Why did I say for our Take Two family to call in quickly, Jerry?
Because the lines always fill up.
And we always leave maybe like a few, probably half a dozen on the line. Doesn't that bother you? It bothers me.
Well, yeah, it's unavoidable, but yeah, I mean, some people tune in later in the show too and can't call early, so
that's
it's
true.
not. Yeah, but
okay.
Anyway,
if you're tuned in right now, call in.
Yeah, well, the phones are already busy, so we're going to see what people have to say. Deb.
We are, and Stella was first up in Ontario on the Station of the Cross. Thanks for calling in so quickly, Stella. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. I was just mentioning to the moderator that my style of communication is to just get it out on the table, clear out any elephants in the room, look at things head on, deal with it. Whereas I'm married to a man who was raised to the exact opposite. You don't upset mom. You don't ask her questions. You don't talk about it. You pretend things don't happen. So in raising our family, we've had, it's been challenging.
Well, Stella, let me ask you this question: Are both of you willing to entertain each other's nuances when it comes to communicating, or are you kind of trumping each other, if you will, and saying, "Okay, well, I'll take
we
it."
do.
Yeah.
We do entertain each other's nuances, as you say. We're not headstrong that one way is right, one way is wrong. I just find it interesting that a person, that's probably one of the characteristics I like about him in every other sense, except during, let's say, difficult conversations, he doesn't want to have them because he doesn't want to hurt feelings, and that's, something that I'm rather good at. Not the hurt feelings part, but at least addressing them and dealing with them. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's interesting how the two of us found each other, because we have two very different communication styles.
Marty and I do as well. Very much so. Wouldn't you say so, Jerry? We're very different in our communication.
Well, yeah, I think we've talked about it before. Marty, Stella is Debbie's husband. They live in Phoenix, and I think Marty's, he's just more of a kind of a quiet, pensive, thoughtful, very deep man. I just love when he does communicate. He's very, very, right on the money all the time. And Debbie, not that you're not all of those things too, but I think it's just maybe a personality thing. And
right.
Stella, as you're talking, I'm kind of reminded of myself. I've had to work hard, Stella, at addressing sometimes the tougher things and communicating about them, because I think we want to avoid offending or stepping on toes or hurting feelings and so forth. But I found in my own experience, and Stella and Debbie, I don't know if either of you have experienced this. If you kind of approach things that way, it can actually let them kind of boil, continue to simmer, and really even get worse. And so I've tried to find tactful ways to kind of be more like you, Stella, and I'm sure you do it very charitably. But I think in the end, to me, that probably is the best way to go about it. Not leaving anything to chance, not leaving anything unsaid or uncommunicated, but doing it, like you said, Stella, in a respectful, charitable way. What do either of you think?
You first, Stella.
Well, again, for me, I get my feelings hurt when it's not, when you beat around the bush. When people beat around the bush, or when people don't want to, like if I'm doing something to you, and and it's offending you or hurting you, or it's impacting you, I want you to tell me, because that's how I communicate. So I don't like the guessing game. I don't like trying to figure out what's going on. So I appreciate my style, let's say.
Well, Stella, if I lived in Ontario, I definitely think you and I would be very good friends because I feel the same way. I don't like guessing either. I'll go home and it'll just ruminate around in my head like, did I do something? Did I say something? And I just wish somebody would say, hey, that offended me, or hey, that bothered me. And I agree with you.
Yes.
But like your husband, he would rather not say anything as to offend. So he might just let it go. He might pass it off. He might just say, hey, it's not worth it. I'll fight the big stuff, not the little stuff. And so it's interesting, the communication styles. It reminds me of the book, The Love Languages, when it talks about how each person receives differently and communicates differently and gives off a persona differently. So yeah, I think it's a really great strength you have. And I think, it's beneficial, and it sounds like you and your husband have a really healthy balance. That's what I think anyway. Seems like it's working. Right?
It's definitely been working.
Good.
That's what counts. Yeah, that's what counts. Thank you, Stella, for calling in from Ontario. We appreciate that, and keep listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and all of the other fine EWTN programs. For example, you've got Cresta in the afternoon today, and John Bergsma is going to offer tips on reading the Psalms. The Psalms are so very, very beautiful. And Father Jeff Kirby is the author of 101 Surprising Facts About St. Peter's and the Vatican. That's a couple of the topics coming up on Cresta in the afternoon today.
Nice.
That is at... Help me out here.
4 p.m. Eastern time.
4 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Right.
For 2 hours.
Al Cresta does such a great job. Oh, I could just listen to him forever. He is a phenomenal person, too. Okay, so thank you again, Stella. Next up is Billy in Pensacola, Florida on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Billy. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Oh, is that me?
That's you.
That's you, Billy.
Oh, great.
That's my southern accent. Did you like that, Billy?
I tell you, what I wanted to do is just give you an example of communicating with my wife.
Okay.
And I do this currently anytime I see a new wedding going on, and I happen to be at the church at the time, and I see the guy, and I tell him, hey, I know what's happening today, you love her. But tomorrow and the next day it's going to be different. And in order to keep things proper, what I found that you really ought to do is every morning when you wake up, you look over and say, my gosh, what a beautiful person. I'm just lucky. How did God just manage to put us together? Now, it doesn't stop there. You have to do it that evening. And from that point on, every day, the rest of your life, it's the same thing. You have to do this, or you begin to separate. As an example, I like to use water and butter. You put them together, and they won't go together. You warm them up, and they'll melt together. You would cool it down, and they separate. That's what happens in marriages. If you don't keep them warm, they'll separate. So
wow.
that's the way I take. I tell people that marriages should. That's how you should react or tell your spouse about each other. Now, it goes further. You need to let your children see the affection that the mother and dad have for each other. Mm-hmm. So if the guy gets up late and the wife's down fixing the coffee already, and he comes in, he looks over and says, golly, thank you a lot. That's a great cup of coffee. And you hug your wife and let your children see that. So they learn as children how to take care of how mama and daddy react. So when they leave home and get married, they already know how to treat their spouse. So
well, Billy,
I was married 66 years. I dated my wife for 7 before we got married.
Wow.
Wow.
I was 14 and she was 18 when I met her.
Wow.
So 7 years I was 21, we got married, and she was 25.
So between dating and marriage, 73 years of Debbie. That's Billy had a lot of.
I was with her.
Experience.
I was with her over 73 years.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
And she expired 18 months ago. And for the last 6 years of her life, she was in a nursing, assisted living. But every day, I fed her at breakfast, at lunch, and supper. Every day. I drove from from the house out to the nursing home. Sometimes I'd even change her because she liked for me to be with her. So,
Bill. Okay.
Go ahead,
now,
Billy, can you give us your wife's name? We keep a beautiful book
Catherine.
I'm sorry, Catherine? With a C or a K?
K.
With a K. Okay. Billy, I just have to say something. First of all, thank you so much. You are just a pleasant soul with the most beautiful, relaxing voice, I have to tell you. So that's part of communication as well. But I don't know if you know this, but you probably do, given that you have practiced this for so many years. But Gary Smalley is a very wonderful, well-known world author and speaker, and he does seminars on relationships. And that's exactly the recipe he gives, Billy, what you just said. And people pay a lot of money for that information that Gary Smalling has to offer. But you lived it. You experienced it. That feeling of telling your spouse every day, oh my goodness, I'm with you. I am just, you're it. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're handsome. You're this. What you did is exactly what he recommends, and he's learned that over all the years that he has worked with couples. So I just want to say, way to go. You had the recipe, and it worked beautifully for you and Catherine and your family, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. No, I think about her constantly. I still go to the cemetery 3 times a day to feed her. Of course, the only thing we can do then is to say the Lord's Prayer. Oh, the other thing is, we never had an argument that I can remember.
Wow.
When we did have something to disagree on, the way I remember it anyway, is that we would go to bed, I would go in and hear her finish saying her prayer. Then she reached over and got my hand. The next morning, I don't know if we had an argument.
I'll tell you what, Billy, you are a shining example of great communication, and I don't mean that just verbally. You mentioned the verbal part, the word, using words to communicate, expressing your gratitude and your love and your appreciation. But you've also brought up something very, very beautiful here too, Billy, and that is just the communication through actions. They say actions speak louder than words, and I'm just deeply touched by, as you shared the last 6 years of Catherine's life when she was in the assisted living facility. You were there, and there may have been times when few words were spoken, if any, and yet you just fed her, morning, noon, and night, and that is just love, and that's communicating love in that way, and so I think it's absolutely beautiful. And Billy, we're going to pray for Catherine. We're going to pray for you. You've lived a wonderful life, and we pray that God has much more of it for you. And I know that you look forward to that day when you and Catherine are going to be reunited, and it's going to be just glorious. And so we thank you very, very much for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we hope that you'll keep listening and call the program again. God bless you, Billy. Thank you.
Wow, what a great call.
Yeah.
That was a home run.
You know what I'd love to hear from. This is interesting. I want to hear if anybody does this. If you and say your spouse, you go on a trip and you're driving, whether it's just kind of a Sunday drive just to get out and get out of the house, or you're traveling on holidays or something, and you can pass an hour or 2 or 3 without hardly saying anything. but you're still communicating. I want to hear if you have that comfort level. Debbie, are you and Marty like that?
That's how Marty wants our car rides to be. He does. And I'm always... No, but I'm like Stella. See, I hope Stella's still listening because Stella will appreciate this. I'm like, what's the matter with you? How come you're not talking?
Right. And so, yeah, somebody call and share that you have that beautiful closeness with your wife or your husband to where you don't really have to be using words to be communicating how much you love each other. 833-288-EWTN. But we're talking about communication styles today and what's yours and how good are you at communicating, keeping conversations going?
I think we're doing really well with the calls so far. Stella was great, Billy was great, and we're waiting for you. 833-288-3986. This is your show, so please take hold of it and call in.
Third Millennium Media presents Debbie Georgianni.
The world tells us not to be merciful, and we as Catholic Christians are called to take a step back and look at it in a different way. We must practice mercy, especially if we want to receive mercy.
Debbie Georgianni, co-host of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, wants to visit your parish retreat or conference. Invite Debbie Georgianni today online at thirdmillenniummedia.com.
It's time for Family Man with Dr. Gregory Popchak.
Want to be more successful? Be humble. A study at Duke University found that successful people tend to exhibit more humility than less successful people in the same field. Being humble doesn't mean beating up on yourself or denying real gifts or talents. That's self-deprecation, which is neither a strength nor a virtue. Exercising true humility, in both the theological and psychological sense, means being willing to see that you don't have all the answers and you can learn a lot from listening to the people around you. Researchers found that humble people did a better job of adapting to new circumstances and soliciting support from others, both of which contributed to the increased success of more humble participants in the study. Jesus said that the meek will inherit the earth. Well, science and the Bible agree. Let humility be the secret of your success. I'm Dr. Greg Popchak, but you can call me Family Man.
To discover more ways faith can enrich your life, visit CatholicCounselors.com.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
And we need to pray for all our world leaders and all those who are in such danger. See, in a day and age where people are getting further away from God, you get further away from goodness. Only God is good. You remember what our Lord said one day? Why do you call me good, he said. Only God is good. Only God.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
I'm Brian Patrick. Tomorrow, Dr. Gracie Christie is in for Gloria Purvis on Morning Glory, and Tim Staples talks about Catholic homeschooling. Morning Glory on EWTN Radio. Now back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
We are glad you're with us. Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. It is your show. You drive it. You provide the insights, the wisdom, the lived experiences. We just learned so much, and the way that you all just inspire us and one another, we appreciate that so much. So here's the number, talking about communication, the importance of it, and how good you are at it, or maybe you've run into some challenges in communicating in key relationships, or maybe on the job. Maybe there are things that come up on the job, and a coworker mistreating you, or you feel like you're being mistreated. Are you able to communicate that? With your boss. That's so very, very important. Otherwise, you can just get really resentful and so forth. So basically any angle on communication that you'd like to talk about, 833-288-3986. So where do we go next?
We're going to go to Danielle in Houston, Texas on Guadalupe Radio. Hi, Danielle. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to share what I do or we do as a family to communicate. So I have 5 kids, 13 and 6 months, and I always try to tell them that a way to communicate is to understand the other side, right? But in a way of helping that person to be that better version of themselves. So when, like, we always have an example, like when dad and mom are, you know, we don't have a discussion, we say we kind of say we exchanging opinion. I mean, dad have a point of view and mom have a point of view, and you have heard how, you know, without disrespect, without, you know, screaming to each other or arguing, because I think argument means that you want to win the battle, and you're not allowing the other person to hear you or to listen. So we always try to see how can we, you know, make progress in listening, because the communication, especially with children, I've seen a lot of family friend of mine that they are suffering because they don't have communication with the kids. And I always tell them we have to let them know that we are not perfect, and as we are not perfect, we can be open to hear what they need to say, because usually parents say, well, you are not allowed to talk, or you are not to share what you think about the problem, and we shut that door. But at the same time, we all say, well, you have to learn to communicate. You have to talk about what you're feeling. So the children doesn't know what to do. So we try to let them know that it's okay to communicate, to open yourself, and to let them to see that open up. It's a great way to heal when you're hurting, to recognize when you did something wrong, and to be humble. Because I think part of the communication, we have to be humble. We have to be less selfish, because sometimes we tend to communicate from our point of view, and we pretend to listen to the other person. And it's been working. I have one of my kids, it doesn't like to open up at all. Like when he's mad, when he struggles with his sibling or at school or whatever, he will shut down. He would just not open up. And we have working with him for the past 2 years, and slowly but surely he will go out, he will leave the room, he will not talk, and like 10, 20 minutes, he come back and say, okay, Mom, I'm ready. And I will not.
Danielle?
Say? Yes, ma'am.
Right. Danielle, I just wanted to share something really quickly.
Sorry.
No. You are fabulous. I was taking notes so fast. I couldn't write any faster. That's why I had to start speaking. So I read a lot of books, and I read a book many years ago by Dr. Phil McGraw, and he talks exactly about what you have put into place in your family. What you did was you created a very safe place for people in your family, the members of your family, to share their opinions, even if they differ from mom, dad, or their siblings. You value what they have to say. You're respectful when they are communicating. And all of that builds their self-esteem in a sense. They know that what they're thinking matters, even if it's being disagreed with. And Dr. Phil talked about in this book, he said, so many times we go into relationships, even in families, and we want to be right fighters. We always want to be right, and we want to win, right, and we want to win the fight. But he said this one time in the book, and I thought this was very fascinating. He says, when you win, there has to be losers. There has to be a loser. And why would you want your spouse or your kids to be losers? You don't want them. You don't want the ones you love to be a loser in the fight. So you can create this win-win environment. And it sounds like Jerry and Danielle, Danielle, you have done that so brilliantly in your family. Way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not been easy. I tell my husband, sometimes I go to bed, and we go to bed, both of us, and we pray and say, thank you, Lara, for everything you have done. Now take a break and you just do it, because it's a hard work. I mean, it's not an easy thing, because I tell my kids, sometimes I want to yell at you, and sometimes when I do yell, and I say, well, you're not, shut up and whatever, right? But then I kind of, and they look at me like, they look at me like, are you okay, Mommy? And like, no, I'm not. I just lose my control, and I apologize. But I said, but I always tell this is a progress. Because my kids sometimes say, Mom, perfection, because they hear a lot like we have to be perfect. We have to be perfect. And I say, well, part of communicating is learning how to be perfect. But I always tell them, don't think about perfection. Think about progress, because perfection is like God. God is perfect, and we want to be perfect, but we are human. And in order for us to get like God, we have to make little progress, like baby steps. So I always use my baby. He's 6 months and say, he's now sitting. That's one step. And he's falling down because he's like a little ball rolling up. So he's frustrated, but that's baby step. And I said, that's how we need to do that. By the end of the day, we see ourselves, what progress, what we made. Do we did this better than yesterday? And it's so hard. Being a parent right now, as the world it is, we cannot stop swimming because we will drown and the world will take us practically. So that's what I want to share, and I hope if someone is listening can use this as a tool. And I always pray for the family and young people who are getting married and are afraid to be mom and dad, and say that you go ahead and God is with you, and patient. If you have God in the middle of your family and your work or whatever you do, the communication always through the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Thank you.
Danielle, you've shared so much beautiful stuff, and I just want to circle back a little bit to something you said, and that is, and Debbie pointed this out, you create an environment in your home where every thought, every opinion, every comment is valued. Not that it's necessarily going to agree with everybody else, like Debbie said, and also, as parents, obviously, I know that you still want to guide your children, morally, and so if they were to have any kind of opinion on something that was not, say, in keeping with our faith or something, you would, as the parent, you would take more of a top-down approach in communicating there. But the fact that I remember, I've said this on the show before. My mother used to say, when we were kids, we were told, that children are to be seen and not heard, and I didn't really know what to think or do with that. But now, as I'm thinking about it from the perspective you're sharing here, Danielle, I think it's much more healthy to allow them to have that freedom. Again, correcting when necessary, but also giving them, making them feel free and comfortable. And that's going to lead, Debbie, I think, to a lifetime of much more wholesome communication skills on the part of kids who grow up in that kind of an environment.
I agree, totally. Danielle, I know it takes a lot of effort what you are doing in your family, but I think it's great. And we're going to continue to pray that you have the strength and endurance to keep that up, because I think it's going to bear much wonderful fruit in your children. I mean, I'm sure that's why you're doing it. You want your kids to have a really good start in life and to be able to go on to their relationships and work and their families. You want them to have a very good foundation, right?
Absolutely. I always tell my children and my husband, we both tell them every night before we finish our prayer, say, what we want for you is more than the academic you do in school. It's not about how good you are in sport. It's how good your soul is. That by the end of the day, if God called you, no matter what age you are, you're ready to be with Him, glorify them. That's what I always try to say. If you're good at math, use that math to glorify God. If you're good in soccer, use that to glorify God and serve others. Because I think we need to start, like a diet. We need to start doing a diet in our family. The world is so hungry of good people, and we need to start doing it with our kids. We keep talking about end of abortion, same-sex marriage, but we're not talking what can we do as a parent? What can we do with our children who are suffering? Because here we are at home doing this, and they go outside and they see all this, and they're like, why? What is happening? Like, well, you are the light of the world. You are that light. You're going to be one in a million, not 1,000,001. I always tell my kids that, and it's a hard thing to do. It's a battle every single day. Sometimes my kids say, why don't we do that? And I say, because we are different. We are the Rivas among the family, and we are different from other people. And it's important, and I believe with my heart that if we do that, each family, no matter what faith you have, we can change. We can end up abortion. We can end up same-sex marriage and all these crazy that is going on. And people, literally, some parents say, well, it's a school decision. Like, no, the school doesn't have power over your kids. The only person, mighty one, who have power over you is God. But God gives you, I tell my kids, my boss is God. I have a boss, and they tell me, really? Like, yes, it's God. If I don't do a good job here, he's going to ask me, what do you did for my children? I give you 5 children. What did you do for them to be that person that I created them? And I'm very passionate about it, and I fight every day, and I hope someone listening that can hear them and say, we're not perfect, and we're just making progress, and not take it like a defeat. Just use defeat as a way of learning and as a way of redemption. And we just celebrate mercy. And how beautiful is that? God knows that we're not perfect, but he gives us everything to just, even though those days that you don't feel good, I feel guilty sometimes. I feel like the worst mom sometimes. But at the end of the day, I know that Mary is with me and God is with me, and he knows that we're making progress, and that's it. I'm sorry.
Oh, Danielle, I could sit here and listen, for at length at what you're saying, because you're touching beautifully on so many different aspects of communication, and of course, marriage and family and parenting, and you want your kids to be their best. And Debbie, I have no doubt that these 5 children growing up in this household are really at a huge advantage over the world, in so many ways. And I just love the way Danielle said they're training them to understand that you must go out, you must be the light of the world, you must shine the light of Christ into the world, and that's where the difference is going to be made. I love it. I love it.
Beautiful. Blessings to your entire family, Danielle.
Yes,
thank you for taking the time away from the 5 children to make the call, because you probably helped souls thousands of miles away. You won't probably see it till eternity, but it's wonderful that you took the time to call in. So thank you, Danielle. Call anytime. Wow. Jerry, can I just share something really quickly? Nicholas weighed in on the Take Two website, our Take Two website. And Nicholas says, hi, folks. The problem with communication nowadays, it's technology. Years ago, we used to spend quality time with our friends and family members. We used to get together, play games such as Monopoly, etc. I know. Monopoly now, now people are just putting it up on walls as artwork. Nowadays, we're too busy with our tablets playing games and checking social media. We need to get back to our values and traditions by spending time with the people we love. That's what I call communication. Thank you, Nicholas, for weighing in on that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to get to Joseph here in just a second, but we had an email from our dear friend Allison in New Jersey, and she says, I know your topic today is about communication, but when you get a chance, face east and blow. Maybe some of your 90-plus degree weather will reach New Jersey. And she sent a screenshot of, it looks like her phone. It's 39 degrees.
I knew my New Jersey friends were going to be sending me texts and stuff because I announced that we hit the 90s, Jerry. But I thought I'd let you go first because you have similar weather that we do in Arizona. All right. Well, we'll send you good weather, Allison.
All right, Joseph, thanks for calling in Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, talking about communication today. Joseph in Pennsylvania, listening on Holy Spirit Radio. Hi, Joseph. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm calling because I want to let people know, in case they don't, that if you're dealing with an alcoholic or somebody that has the traits of an alcoholic, communication is much, much different. I did not have that before I married my wife, so I did not have the experience. And I tried to communicate and be open to whatever, the communication led to, just seeking the truth. But with somebody, and you don't have to be an alcoholic. You can have the traits of an alcoholic. People don't. I learned that in Al-Anon. Which can make it even more difficult to discern what you're dealing with. But regardless, when somebody has the traits or is an alcoholic, you do not engage. It's one of the first things that you're taught because it just leads to insanity and more stress for both people. The person that I had with the traits was my wife, who passed away a couple of years ago. Unless the person is in recovery, you don't want to engage. If they start leading down a path that is not going anywhere, you just want to detach lovingly. That's what they teach in Al-Anon, which in my case, it needed the grace of God to detach lovingly because I was getting verbal assaults left and right. But just wanted to share that because I had no idea what I was dealing with until I started putting some facts together from her family background, which made me investigate and check into seeing what the traits are of an alcoholic, and going to a library and getting that kind of information and realizing that exactly this is what I'm dealing with. And then I went to Al-Anon and found out that that would help me to deal with it.
Right.
So I just want to make people aware of that in case they're not.
Thank you, Joseph, for doing that. You've really added a new perspective to this conversation because different dynamics within a person and their past and their personalities and characteristics, and of course, wounds and addictions and things really can change a whole, the whole approach one has to take to communication. And you really answered a question that I was going to ask you, and I was going to ask you, how did you adjust in terms of communicating with your wife during those years? And you said, I think you said detach lovingly or something. And Debbie, it's got to be a very challenging thing, because someone who's in an addictive situation, their thinking might not be as clear as it could be, and perhaps their mind is preoccupied at times, or perhaps all the time,
Right.
with when they're going to get that next drink or whatever their substance of choice is. So. Yeah, I definitely feel for Joseph, and we certainly want to get to his late wife's name, for our prayer book as well.
Are you able to give us your wife's name for we pray for the deceased and for the living, Joseph? If you're able to, great. If not, God knows who we're praying for.
Yeah, I'd rather not, just for
Okay.
the family,
That's okay.
No problem.
But I appreciate you asking.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the prayers. I mean, that was the main thing that got me through it. I'm a practicing Catholic, and I try not to be Catholic. I try to be Orthodox, and I'm not a saint. But the long and short of it is that's the main thing that kept me through the whole thing. She never went into recovery, and so I was dealing with this constantly, and it got worse when she got ill.
Right.
And I just, and the thing is, Jerry was just saying about how. I forget exactly what it was, but I know what the point I was going to make is that these people, they can function very highly. There's functioning alcoholics, and they can do very well in their jobs and things like that. But it's like Jekyll and Hyde, and they can be very, very unreasonable. It's a disease, and some people. My wife was very intelligent. I mean, she functioned highly with people, but in our relationship, it was like a total different thing. But I learned to take it not personal, realizing that where it was coming from, and that's one of the things they teach in Al-Anon too. Don't take it personal, detach lovingly. When the verbal assaults start coming at you.
Joseph, first of all, you can count on the Take Two family to be praying for your late wife. We're so sorry for your loss. But Joseph, we're also going to pray for you as well, because she suffered through the disease, and you suffered as well. And you are
thank you.
Yeah, you are so kind in the words that you're using, even when you're practicing everything that you received at Al-Anon to help with the tools and stuff. You said detach lovingly. You can tell that there's still that deep, deep, deep love for your wife. And I think it's really beautiful, and it's a hard thing you have gone through. And of course, your wife went through as well. So just please know that you leaned on your faith. Well, now you can count on the prayers, because the prayers are with you, Joseph, for moving forward and to see what God has in store for you. So I just want to say thank you for leaning on God, because so many people would have turned away.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Lots of prayers coming your way, not just from me and Debbie, but if you're, even an occasional listener to this show, we're big on prayer. And Take Two family, they start praying for intentions right when they hear them. So thank you, Joseph. We appreciate that. We've got Ruben next. But Debbie, you got a... Well,
I do. Can I share something real quick?
Real quick so we can get to
Media
Ruben.
missionaries?
Yeah.
Okay, just real quickly, because I love this. It's a ministry. It's wonderful. If you want to become an EWTN media missionary, please just pray about it, because what they do is fabulous in the communities. They just raise awareness at the parishes and in our different neighborhoods, all about what EWTN is doing to help change lives, to get people closer to God. And they do it through print and electronic media that EWTN provides. So if you feel passionate about EWTN, you want to do something, you want to take action and be a media missionary, then please just visit EWTNmissionaries.com today and join us in sharing the eternal word with the world.
All right. Ruben, we're going to get to you in Hondo, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Hate to do this to you, Ruben. We wanted to hear what your take is on this. We've got about 90 seconds before we hear that closing music. So go ahead, Ruben. Welcome.
No problem. What I wanted to say was I just got out of prison, and my wife's name is Delia Dominguez. We had very poor communication. And I myself, not her, she tried to talk to me, and she's always been very humble. And it was like the other brother was saying, through alcohol and drugs. I was on my way back from the halfway house now on her radio station, and I've learned a lot in prison. The communication styles that I've been using is being assertive and learning to love my wife as the Lord loves the church. And that has been very important in my now coming back into society. And also the most important thing is now to sit down and talk to her about how her day went instead of about me. It was always selfishness. And that comes from not being in the right state of mind because of the alcohol and drugs. But that being said, also showing that example to the kids. And like I said earlier, when I spoke to you, God spells love T-I-M-E, time, to give them time. And it's very important that we also put our cell phones down and talk about the day and be listen more than speak.
Right.
And
Ruben, I'm going to have to jump in here. I apologize, dear brother in Christ. We're just you're any second now. Rich is going to roll that music. You're going to hear that, and that gives us 60 seconds to get out. But Ruben, thank you for sharing this. I mean, this is really beautiful, a testament to God's grace in your life, in your wife's life. Congratulations on being home now, and you're going to be in our prayers in your marriage and your family. And thank you for sharing the beautiful example of how you have come to realize, maybe a change or two you had to make in your own life, and the benefits and fruits that are going to come from that. So we're going to pray for that.
We got some great wisdom today. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of notes, Jerry. This is amazing. Thanks, you guys. You did a great job today. Tomorrow we have another show planned for you, Social Media Snafus. Is that how you say it, Jerry? You came up with this.
Has social media ever gotten you in trouble in some way? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Until then.
See you real soon.